All right, welcome to another episode of Geek Bros Talk. Here, my brother, Possibilities. We're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, there's caves and caverns here, so we're doing a little bit of hiking. So check that out. Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to drop down there. And these caverns actually have bats as well. So there's some more caves down here. And so Possibilities, what are some interesting things in technology or anything that you are currently impressed with in 2019 since we're out here in the wilderness?
Yeah, because that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
AMD's been making a pretty good comeback. I know we've discussed this quite a bit over the past probably 2 years.
Yep.
But they're on the upward trajectory. Like their CPUs are just straight killing it. Intel's got a little bit of egg on their face because they don't have anything really competitive, nor do they have anything in the pipeline. So it's going to be interesting to see how the CPU wars play out. But, she invested in AMD. Good job. The stocks are doing pretty well right now.
And so what do you think AMD is doing right with their processors, which they haven't been? I know we talked about this when the Ryzen line first came out.
Yeah. So if you think about any hardware development, you have to have things prepped like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many years in advance, right, for the next iteration of things. So, sometimes you have to take a blow for like 5-10 years. But then I think they just hired a lot of the right key personnel. I personally like Lisa Su as their CEO because she does have like a hardcore tech background.
Yeah, she's an engineer.
Yeah, and I think she's a huge. I don't know how big. Obviously, like whenever Jim Keller was on the Zen project as well. But just the idea of doing like the chiplet design, like that's the easy one for everyone to kind of like pair it around. And like I'm not super familiar with like more of like the chip side of things, but just the ability to do chiplet design, which allows them to basically be able to produce in smaller quantities, and they can have a little bit more QC control over like this chiplet isn't as good, so we can like throw into this one or this one. It's like cheaper, it's more modular. And I think the ability for them to really bin their chips is a lot better and easier now.
It reduces their production time too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So from like a manufacturing perspective, that's amazing. Like why would you gamble making like one big chip or a few like big chips versus like cutting it down just to say like this one doesn't make the cut, and just like toss it, right? So you can get rid of like a lot. You have like a lot smaller surface space to mess up with, I guess.
So out of all the new Ryzen processors, their line, which one do you think is most appealing for you?
Honestly, I haven't kept up super much with it, but obviously it's going to be pretty similar to like their past generations where, for the mid-range, you get like a 3600. I believe that's probably 8 cores now. I think previously it was 6. Again, like I haven't been keeping up super much with it, but again, it's just like, if you want gaming on a very, very good budget with the ability to do, a lot of multimedia productivity, because it's still 8 cores, 16 threads, 3600 is great. I have heard that, AMD has their naming schema with like 3600, 3600X, 3700, 3700X, with the X being normally higher binned and generally like could perform a little bit better. However, I think this time around the 3600X isn't as good. Namely because like it's probably going to OC the same. It has a better cooler, but for $50 more, may not be worth the price. Personally, I would probably go with like a 3700 just because I would probably work more with like VMs, more video editing things, and generally it's like in the price range that I'm comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
But you can still build a killer system with a 3600. And generally for gaming, a lot of the single thread performance is pretty close to Intel now. Like,
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And hopefully it just gets better from there. They make a very, very strong value proposition, right? It's cheap, you have a ton of cores, and single thread performance is almost as good, if not as good in some cases. So like, no reason to go. Not a whole lot of reason, unless you like really value like you really need to hit like 160 frames, 240 frames or whatever. But for most people, that's not really needed.
Yeah, they're probably not even gonna have the monitor to handle that anyway.
Yeah, exactly, and that's like a whole another upgrade path you have to go through.
Yeah.
And generally, also, what I like about AMD is that, like, I got a first gen, so my mobile was a X370, and they're supporting AM4 until like 2022, 2021 or something. So that's like nearly 4 generations of chips that can use the same mobile.
Yeah.
You look at Intel, and it's like you gotta upgrade every other generation. You know, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, Intel likes to do that.
Yeah.
So, at least for me, in terms of the processor side, I really think AMD's doing some great things, because whenever I did my Linux PC build, my brother actually got all the parts. So I actually have an AMD RX 470 GPU in there, and the performance is still really amazing for me. I'm able to play games in Linux at 60 frames per second in ultra settings for most games, especially games using the Vulkan API. And so I think for me, as somebody who mostly spends their time creating content, having this new line of AMD chips is just simply awesome. The value proposition is not only great, but for someone like myself, I'm able to get a lot of performance many years to come. And even with the PC I have right now, it could do everything I needed to. About the only huge benefit that I would get right now from actually having these new CPUs is actually better performance whenever I'm doing 4K content. And so another type of technology in 2019 so far, and you know, me and my brother were just like out here talking, so we didn't really have anything scripted, but another piece of technology that I think is really, I think, at the cusp of becoming something awesome, even more so, is VR. You know, specifically with Valve, they came out, what was I can't remember the name.
The Index.
Yeah, the Index. That is, I think, that near the next level. I think not just because of the resolution and the frames per second, but I think mainly because of the knuckles. You know how now it can actually sense your fingers individually without having you to press a button. And so having that just really immerses you. And I don't think that's something that's been done as well as the Valve Index has offered. And also, even though VR isn't as mainstream, it's becoming more mainstream. People actually know about it. I think I could attribute a lot of that, in my opinion, to the PSVR, because most people can't afford or would be willing to invest in something like the HTC Valve or even the Oculus Rift. And with the new Oculus Rift, the mobile version, I think that's a great way for people to get into VR. Now, I myself, that's really not something that really appeals to me, because you actually get everything on the headset, so you don't get the same amount of power. And at the same time, you actually have to be connected to Facebook. And honestly, I don't want to game everything through Facebook or through the Facebook apps.
I did read an interesting article or headline today.
Yeah.
I think one of the founders of Oculus, or at least like some guy high up at Facebook, was like, there's probably, he doesn't feel very confident about the proliferation into VR of every day. He said even if they offer it for free, you know, he's kind of still hesitant to say that like VR can capture the attention span like a video game does, right? Where you can spend 6 hours at a time doing it.
Yeah.
So I know they still have like quite a bit of ways to go on just making it like more immersive, you know.
Yeah.
Faster rendering times, like just, you know, kind of like to take you out of that screen door effect. And
yeah. And I think the Valve Index goes a long way towards doing that. But I think one thing that you mentioned that was really important is just normal everyday people. You know, like, how are you going to spend 6-7 hours on that headset? How can you make it comfortable enough and immersive enough where you don't get sick?
Whether it be like the hardware or even the content itself, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, I don't know. Do you really want to? I haven't used VR personally, so it's like a lot of speculation. Obviously, I could be like totally off base, but you know, I feel like it may be even mentally exhausting being in VR for so long, because it's just like living regular life, right? Like,
yeah.
There's probably like a lot of like sensory things going on that you have to really, your body has to power, right?
Yeah, it has to adjust to it.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, the same as being outdoors for 6 hours, right? It can get exhausting, you know. I think mentally, you get fatigued.
And you know, as VR is getting better, you know, I keep thinking about sci-fi movies. Like, when is it going to get to the point? And I think we're almost there. Like, we're spending so much time with technology, and if VR becomes as good as they hope it would be, you know, are more people going to spend their time in the VR world? You know, if you've seen so many VR movies, sci-fi movies, like Player One was the most recent one.
Right.
I really see that happening for sure. You know, I mean, Kind of scary, but
That was an icebox.
yeah,
It was
it's
really
kind of
cool
where we're
in here.
heading. Okay, so, all right, so me and my brother are at this cave right now, and we're actually gonna go ahead and close off on this episode. Is there anything else that you wanted to say for the audience?
Yeah, just people look out for AMD. Their recent video card's actually pretty good. May not be like one-upping the video, but definitely like again, AMD has always been kind of king of value price proposition.
Cool.
Yeah. Other than that, that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us for another episode of Geek Bros Talk. We haven't been making too many episodes, but whenever me and my brothers get a chance, we're always going to talk about tech, geeky stuff. So if you had any thoughts on anything we talked about today, or any of these weird caves that we're looking at, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Go Content Creators group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Go Content Creators group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.